Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all enjoying GBL. I have one more Ultra League video for you guys before it rotates out. Unless of course this team gets me to veteran, which it might, because based on how the meta has been shaping up in the past couple of days, I decided that the team that you guys are seeing on the screen at the moment is one of the best to run. That's because I've been seeing a lot of fairy types on the lead, and for the most part, the backline has been countering what I've been seeing in the back. A lot of people are running fairy types on the lead with a ground type in the back. I've started seeing a lot more Gastrodons, Swamperts, Zygardes, because of how popular Bellibolt was. And then in the past couple of days, Bellibolt has kind of disappeared from my games and everyone has just been running Bellibolt counters. And this is supposed to counter the Bellibolt counters. Hopefully that makes sense. But I've gone 14-1 so far with these Pokemon. And in the video, you guys are going to see a 5-0 and a 4-1. These are battles from yesterday, but today I used the team again and I got another 5-0. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording, but we did manage to reach the 2,400s. So if I reach early veteran in the next couple of days, which I'm really hoping I do because I do not like what's coming in the next week or the next rotation for GBL, we are going to get Master League, which I'm not a big fan of. And we are going to get a special cup for Ultra League, which I'm kind of excited about, but I'm also a little bit nervous because I'm not going to be familiar with the meta. So I would like to hit veteran before then. And if I manage to, then I might have to put out one more video before league rotation. But the team is going to be Tentacruel on the lead with Galarian Moltres on the safe swap and Virizion in the back. Like I said, I was seeing a lot of leads that Tentacruel does really well against. A lot of flying leads. I have Blizzard for the flying types. I was seeing a lot of fairy types like Florges, Clefable, Galarian Weezing. And I was seeing a lot of fighting types on the lead, especially Primeape, which again, Tentacruel is going to do really well against. Now, the team is ABA weak to electric types, but against a Bellibolt, again, you are going to be able to hit for neutral with the Scald and the Blizzard. And Galarian Moltres is going to do okay against Bellibolt because Sucker Punch is neutral and it's going to be resisting the Sucker Punch from opposing Bellibolts. However, I have been running into more Bellibolts that are running Thundershock, and that is a little bit annoying for the team. But also because a lot of people are running Bellibolt counters, I feel like it's kind of sort of going away from the meta. Well, it is still there, but I have been seeing a lot less of it. All right, that's enough rambling from me. Let's jump into these battles. Remember, if you lose lead, just swap into your Moltres and hope that Moltres can draw out any fairy types that your opponent has in the back. All right. In this match, we are going to be up against a Shadow Galarian Weezing on the lead, a really good lead for us, and our opponent swaps out into a Shadow Blastoise. Okay, not great because the Skull Bash is really, really going to hurt here, but I am going to let it go, and oh, it ends up being an Ice Beam, not a Skull Bash, so even worse for us, but my opponent does let the next Leaf Blade go, and we're able to get rid of that Blastoise. Okay, I'm just gonna go for Leaf Blades here against the Galarian Weezing, really hoping I can reach another one because they do chunk quite a bit. However, they take us out, we bring that Tentacruel back in, and my opponent's final Pokemon is a Lapras. Okay, hopefully this Lapras doesn't have Ice Beam, but it looks like I am gonna have to double shield my Galarian Moltres here. There's nothing that can really threaten the Tentacruel from Galarian Weezing, so I'm okay with using both of my shields here for Moltres. However, my opponent actually swaps out here and goes for a Play Rough. So my opponent is running Play Rough and Sludge, which is a really interesting moveset for Weezing. And I can bring my Tentacruel back in. Okay, I'm just going to be able to take them out here with a Scald and one more Poison Sting, it looks like. And then my opponent brings out Lapras back in. I think they are going to be running Skull Bash. Yep, which is unfortunately neutral for Tentacruel, but I have energy on my Moltres. My switch timer is up. I'm going to be able to bring that back in, go for a fly, take the Lapras out, and we take that win. Now, I should give props to my opponent because that is a full team of Shadows, so a really fun team, but GG's either way. Moving on to the next match, we are going to be up against a Lapras on the lead. I swap out immediately into my Moltres because if the Lapras is running Skull Bash, then it's absolutely going to destroy our Tentacruel, and both of my charge moves are going to be resisted, so there's not much I can do in that matchup. So I bring in the Moltres, and we shield the Ice Beam, but then we manage to draw out a Corviknight, which is actually pretty good for us. I know that I will be able to survive 2 Sky Attacks, and the fast move is doing nothing to us. This next Sky Attack is not going to be enough to KO, so I will be able to take them out with a Sucker Punch if they stayed in, but unfortunately for me, my opponent brings out a Dragapult, and that is going to counter both of the Pokemon that I have left. I go for a Scald, really hoping to get a shield from my opponent because they have 2 shields left, but they let it go. It's obviously not going to be enough to KO, but we do get it into the yellow. However, now my opponent has to start using their shields. They are going to take us out with a Shadow Ball, and now I just have this Virizion left. At this point, I know it is over for me. I don't know why I'm staying in. My opponent even goes for a Breaking Swipe and manages to get an attack drop on us. If I hadn't gotten that attack drop, then I could have gotten rid of this Lapras before it reached the Ice Beam, but either way, I don't think it would have made a difference. So GG's to our opponent. We are going to take a loss here. Oh, also guys, I just realized I made a mistake. I have the first set that I played at the end of the video, and then the set is supposed to come after that one. But I don't feel like re-recording my voiceover, so we're just gonna go with it. Just know that the next set that we played is the set that I played before this one. Anyways, moving on to the next battle, we are up against a Feraligatr on the lead, which Tentacruel is going to resist all of the moves from this Feraligatr. However, I am going to swap into my Moltres just in case my opponent has a Fairy type in the back. I can draw that out. But we do end up drawing out a Typhlosion, which is pretty good for us. I know that I can survive a Thunder Punch from the opponent, and I will be able to reach another fly here. We take both of our opponent's shields, but then they get greedy here trying to farm us down, and I make it to another fly so I can get rid of this Typhlosion. And now I am going to bring in my Virizion for the Feraligatr. However, it looks like my opponent's final Pokemon is a Zygarde, so my opponent goes ahead and top left. I did bring in Tentacruel because I'm running Blizzard, and that is going to hit for quadruple super effective against the Zygarde. But GG's to our opponent, and that is going to be a 4-1. That's actually where I ended off yesterday, but because the order of the sets is incorrect, we are going to go back in time now to the previous set. Now on to the next battle. It's just going to be a hard counter battle for my opponents. They lead Clefable into our Tentacruel. They swap out into a Shadow Feraligatr, and I am going to shield the first move in case it's an Ice Beam, but it ends up being a Hydro Cannon, which is really annoying. Because this is Shadow, I am going to have to shield the Ice Beam, otherwise my opponent can take Switch. And it looks like they were willing to invest both of their shields. So because they invested both shields, I'm going to go ahead and invest both of my shields as well. That way I can keep my Tentacruel on their Clefable. We take them out with the Leaf Blade, and now I am also going to be able to chip the Clefable with Leaf Blades from Virizion. Alright, so it looks like my opponent is going to have to throw some energy here. They do go for a Moonblast. They don't want to get hit by another Leaf Blade. And it looks like my opponent's final Pokemon is a Tentacruel. We did CMP tie on the move. I go for a Brave Bird, and my opponent is going to go for a Blizzard here, which is going to KO. But that's okay because both of their final Pokemon are not going to be threatening to our Tentacruel. I am able to reach a Scald before my opponent can reach a move on Tentacruel, and they are going to go ahead and top left because Clefable is not going to be able to win that 1v1. All right, now in the next match, we are going to be up against a Gliscor on the lead, which is not great for Tentacruel, but I can still hit for super effective with the Scald, and it is going to hurt. I think I only need to land 2 to take this out. However, my opponent goes ahead and uses a shield, and then I use my own shield, and they actually bait with an Aerial Ace. Okay, but then they swap out into a Blastoise. I can bring in my Virizion here to get rid of this. And I don't think my opponent is going to want to invest a second shield. So my next Leaf Blade should land. However, it's not going to be enough to KO the Blastoise because they were able to boost their defense with that Skull Bash. So they do survive, but I know that I also survive a Skull Bash here. I'm not quite able to take them out, but I did make it to that Leaf Blade, so I swap out with the move just in case my opponent has another water type in the back. And I bring my Tentacruel back in. I know that I have so much energy on Tentacruel, so I go for 2 Scalds. I manage to take my opponent's final shield, and at this point, if they go for an Earthquake, I know that they're not going to be able to make it to another one, so I use my final shield as well. I do manage to make it to another Scald, but my opponent manages to catch it on a Samurott. I'm okay with this because I know that my Moltres is going to be able to destroy their Gliscor, and all I want to do here is just weaken the Samurott as much as I can. I actually survive the next Hydro Cannon, and I make it to another Scald to take the Samurott out, and then I'm immediately going to swap into my Moltres. As soon as my opponent sees it, they go ahead and they top left. Alright, on to the next battle. We are going to be up against a Virizion on the lead, which is an okay lead for us. This is where we might have needed Acid over Poison Sting because we have to land a Blizzard to take the Virizion out. However, my opponent swaps into their own Tentacruel, and I'm just going to go ahead and stay in this because Tentacruel can actually destroy my backline. But because I'm running Poison Sting and my opponent is running Acid, I know that I will be able to win the mirror here. Now my opponent chooses not to stay in. They swap out into a Belly Bolt, and I decide to go for a Scald so that I could weaken them a little bit and make the Virizion matchup against the Belly Bolt easier. However, we end up getting a shield from them, and we get an attack debuff, which is amazing. Now I am going to come in with Virizion and try to damage this as much as I can with the Leaf Blades. But of course my opponent doesn't stay in. Our switch timers are also a little bit misaligned. So I'm going to go for a Leaf Blade against their Tentacruel, and then I can bring back in my own Tentacruel. Okay, so I wanted to farm them down with the Poison Stings, but it was pretty obvious I wouldn't have been able to. So instead I go for a Scald, but then for some reason my opponent decides to use their final shield on their very low HP Tentacruel. And because they have no shields left, that means that I can go ahead and double shield here against Belly Bolt, and I will be able to land a Brave Bird on their Virizion. Now they do manage to get the Sacred Sword off because I kept farming, but it's okay because it's not going to be enough to take our Moltres out. I'm able to go for the Brave Bird, KO the Virizion, and then my opponent is going to go ahead and top left, and we take that win. On to the next match, we're up against a Guzzlord on the lead. This is a pretty decent lead for us, but I'm also keeping in mind that my opponent could possibly have a Virizion answer in the back because their lead is weak to Virizion. So I'm just going to go straight for the Blizzard here. I don't mind if my opponent shields, but they don't shield. Because they don't shield, I am going to swap out into Moltres just in case I need to draw out a Fairy type. We draw out a Galarian Wheezing, and they actually don't shield the Brave Bird, which is pretty amazing for me. I am going to let my Moltres go now, and then I'm going to come in with Tentacruel and go for a full farm down against this Wheezing. Wait, is this going to take us out? Nope, they go for a Sludge. Okay, how am I going to win this? Oh, they have a Dusknoir in the back, a Shadow Dusknoir. So, okay, let's see how this goes. I am going to go for a Leaf Blade, and they let it go. They still have 2 shields left though, so I have no idea. Oh, right, we left with a move stored on Tentacruel, I believe. I think we have a Scald because I know that I get a 5-0 in this set. I just don't remember how I won this match. I go for another Leaf Blade, take my opponent's final shield, and then here I swap into the Tentacruel, throw the Scald. It's not quite enough to KO them, but we do get an attack drop, which I believe is what won me the game because I survived the Astonish from the Dusknoir. And then I'm able to Poison Sting the Weezing down and the Dusknoir down. Okay, we still get the win. All right, moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against a Moltres on the lead. Now, usually I will, or I have started at least, going for the Scald as soon as my opponent gets Brave Bird, because I've noticed in a lot of Moltres leads, they'll go immediately for that Brave Bird and swap out. So I will try to CMP tie with them on the Scald because that way I could get a shield out of them. But either way, we're still able to get a shield from them when we go for the Scald against the Golurk. But then I can come out of this with so much energy. I am going to go for Fly or 2 Flies against their Moltres, weaken them, and let's see what my opponent decides to do. They no shield, and my opponent's final Pokemon is a Rhyperior. As soon as they see our Virizion, they just go ahead and top left. GG's to our opponent, but I do respect the spice with the Rhyperior, and that is going to be our 5-0 for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like my content, please consider subscribing, maybe leave a like. It helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.